All right, Brandon Noble, our long regional nightmare is over. Penn State finally ended this damn defensive coordinator search with the biggest hire Penn State, or probably, frankly, anybody this cycle could have made. They poached Jim Knowles from the defending national champions and our biggest obstacle for sure inside the Big Ten.
Yeah, that's not an easy thing to do. You know, when you got a team that makes a run like Ohio State did and plays as well as they did on defense, usually the coordinator doesn't leave for another coordinator position, especially against an in-conference foe. Like that is, it's kind of mind-blowing, right? The fact that they pulled this off is pretty incredible. We'll see what comes of it, but I mean, it's a huge get for us. And at the same time, that is a big loss for Ohio State.
Yeah, I think that's among the many benefits of this. I think it signals something to your fans and, more importantly, your boosters and your donors, right? I think it probably strengthens you in that you bring in one of the sharpest defensive minds in the sport right now.
Yeah.
But also critically, it deals a blow to, like I said, your biggest rival. There's no question, even with Oregon coming to Beaver Stadium this season, the monkey Penn State has got to get off its back at some point, is this losing streak to Ohio State. So why not make them weaker, right?
Yeah.
And you talk about the difficulty of pulling this off. Again, I'm still a little bit in awe of it, if I'm being honest. Money talks. This is a new waters Penn State's swimming in. I do want to talk about that and maybe what are some of the short and long-term implications for the program. But let's start with the headline. Let's start with the guy we are bringing to Happy Valley. I know you know a fair bit about him, so just talk a little bit about what James Franklin is adding to his staff with Jim Knowles coming to wear the blue and white.
Number one, I think Jim does an amazing job of being creative, right? I think sometimes defensive coordinators, football coaches in general, right, we get very stuck in our ways and very static, and this is who we are. I'm a 4-2-5 quarters guy, right? Or I'm a like we saw with Al Golden in the playoff run. Like we're going to send 5 and we're going to play cover 1, man behind it, right? Come hell or high water, I don't care what happens. This is who we are. And I think one of the unique thing about Jim is that you've kind of watched him evolve. And I think when I met him when he was at Duke. I was at Coastal Carolina. Clayton Carlin was my defensive coordinator there. He had a relationship with Knowles. We went and did like a 4-2-5 quarters clinic there. With him, really smart guy, really good guy. Enjoyed the time, learned a lot. But then you watched him, and he went to Oklahoma State, right? So now he's in the Big 12, right? The wild, wild west of defensive football. Because Lord knows nobody plays defense in the Big 12. And Knowles was able to kind of merge some of the 4-2-5 quarter stuff without getting too technical into this, for the audience, along with, kind of the Iowa State 3 high safety stuff. So, and I think that what you saw this year, especially when they kind of went on this playoff run to win the title, is they really went from being, because let me step back. Ohio State is traditionally a 4 down. They're going to, Larry Johnson, they're going to rush their 4 guys. They're going to be as good as anybody else in the country, 2 deep. You know what I mean? And they're going to play coverage behind it. And
just to stop you for a moment, you mentioned LJ. Look, I can't crawl up inside the guy's head. And what I know is he's like Krusty the Clown would say, they pulled a big dump truck full of money up to my house. I'm not made of stone. I get it. Right. I'm sure that's a major motivation here. There were some rumblings that differences in philosophies and just in style, maybe one of the reasons why he's ready to move on. But go on.
Yeah, no. And but what Jim's been able to do, though, is kind of merge these 2 philosophies together, right? He's been very flexible. Like he's created this defense that at Oklahoma State was able to do a lot of different things. It was almost, I really like watching it because it's almost positionless, right? He was doing things with guys, and very multiple, he'd be in an odd front, then he'd go to a 4 down, he'd play a 3 high, and then so there's a lot for the offense to digest, but really doing the same things over and over. So kind of like to flip it on its head, Mike Martz in The Greatest Show on Turf with the Rams, Marshall Faulk, all those guys. They ran the same, being a little simplistic here, they ran the same 10 plays out of a million different shifts and formations. and personnel groups, right? So you got all this eye candy, but they ran the same plays. So Jim's done that, but he's done it in a way that combats kind of the modern offense right now. And so he to me is one of the most innovative and best defensive minds at that level that there is.
I like what you say about his ability to come in and evaluate the personnel and kind of adapt what he's doing schematically to it. That was some of my complaints, as you know, over the years with some of the offensive coordinators who it hasn't worked out as well with at Penn State versus like a Joe Moorhead. Or I think what we've seen so far from Andy Kotelnicki is that you have some things you would like to do, but there's the army you wish you had and the one you have. And I like a coach who can come in and say, all right, this is what I would ideally do schematically, but here are the athletes I have, and I want to put these guys in position to succeed. And you bring up him coaching for 4 years at Oklahoma State. I know there were some fans who were quick to kind of dismiss the hoopla around the pursuit of this guy by multiple programs and millions of dollars being thrown around. And they say, well, look, how hard is it to win with Ohio State's talent? Because they got the best roster money can buy. I get that. Look, first of all, I don't want to discount that. No. Many coaches lose with a lot of talent.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I think, Phil Jackson has 11 rings. And yes, he had Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. But it's tough to coach superstars sometimes. Yes. So I don't want to dismiss that. On the other hand, 4 years at Oklahoma State, when he got there, year number one, that defense was ranked 97th in FBS. All he did over the next 3 seasons was move them up every year, reduce the number of points per game allowed. He had them, I believe, in the top 10. I think they were ranked 9th in the nation in defense his last season in Stillwater. And as you said, that's not a conference where they play a lot of defense. The premiums on offense. And look, let's just be honest about it. Oklahoma State's really good program, all things considered. They are not bringing anywhere near the caliber of talent that even Penn State is. And we're still a notch or two below Ohio State.
Yeah. I mean, I think, again, when you look at a guy to me that has coached at places where, Jim didn't become the guy he is because he coached at Ohio State, right? Because he had talent. He's a guy that worked his way up. Like I said, I met him when he was at Duke, with Cutcliffe, right? Like this was before, So he was there, and then he went to Oklahoma State, right? So you're not dealing with the 5 stars, right? You're not, and you saw what he did with a group that is ridiculously talented and well paid. He took care. They won a national title, and look, that offense played lights out. Will Howard played a great game, had a great run. But they won that national title, in my opinion, mostly because of their defense, right? The whole thing, right, from top to bottom, right, all the way through. And he knows how to do it. So he's a guy that has a system that is very pliable, very flexible. He's very open-minded. He can come in here, take a look at what he has and say, this is what works well. And then you can come in here and also take a look at and this is kind of another plus, is the guy's been in the conference for a few years, right?
Yeah.
So he has a knowledge of all these other teams. It's not like it's going to be brand new coordinator versus coordinator, right? And I think Tom Allen had a little bit of that too, right? He'd been in Indiana for a few years. He knew his opponents. When I played in the NFL, I spent almost my entire career in the NFC East. I knew Andy Reid's offense like the back of my hand. Right? You know what I mean? I knew Steve Spurrier's offense, which was ridiculous, right? You know what I mean? When he was in Washington, like the back of my hand. So the familiarity, right, on top of an amazing football mind and some really good football players at Penn State, I think it's a great combination as we roll into the season.
Yeah, no question. Familiarity with the conference, just a sharp defensive mind who can develop talent and call plays well in game. Part of it, I said, when this job came open, I said, you got to get somebody with a killer instinct. If you look at what Notre Dame's defense did to Penn State, and I know Al Golden came up short against that Ohio State roster in the national championship game, but all season long, I think he had those kids playing above their heads. And when they got the opponent on the ground, they choked them out.
Yes.
And so I want a coach who's going to instill that. And I think you have that in Jim Knowles. As we're talking about this, I'm thinking about, oh, good God, what a great judge of talent Mike Gundy is to go out and find these coordinators. And then that got me thinking about, Brandon, the last time we hired a former diamond in the rough coordinator hire that Mike Gundy brought to Oklahoma State, who then went on to coach at Ohio State. And that was Mike Yurcich, the consensus hottest coaching candidate on the assistant market the year we got him. So I hope that story doesn't have a similar ending to this one. I hope this one ends differently. And I'm going to use that to pivot to the next topic. Another comparison to the past I can make in program history is that I think now, with the talent coming back, the way this past season ended, and the investment Penn State is making, I mean, literally the financial investment in both bringing kids back for one more go around on the field and in building this staff, specifically with this hire, the expectations and with them the pressure are going to be the most we've seen around here. I think since the 99 season, when LeVar Arrington was the cover boy on Sports Illustrated, they has the number one team in the country. We're bringing back a ton of talent on defense. And once again, I hope that this season ends with a much happier conclusion than that one's did.
Yeah.
With the 3 straight losses to end the regular season and a future national pariah being carried off the field after the bowl game. So let's just, let's just say that we hope all around past is not going to be prologue on this one.
Yeah. Yeah. No, but yes. Thank you for tempering the enthusiasm of this podcast.
That's what I'm here to do.
I know it is. And look, it's you don't know how it's going to shape out. I think when you look at what's happened so far in this short amount of time since the end of the college football season, which took a very long time to finish, to be completely honest with you. I had no complaints. I enjoyed every minute of the college football playoffs, but it was definitely kind of like, wow, like it was very long.
Fix a calendar, condense it in.
That's exactly right. I think the thing that I like the most is, we've talked about it on Obligatory, is you're going to lose a tremendous amount of tier one talent, 2 of them being 2 of the best football players in college football, and Tyler Warren and Abdul Carter, right?
Yeah.
Like those are your big play. They're the guys that make your team go, or made this team go. But the cool thing is you're seeing these other guys that have the opportunity to go. The Zane Durant's, like guys like that, you know what I mean? That are kind of really the heart and soul of your football team, right? So they're not the splash guy, they're not the guy that makes the big play, but they're the core of your team that made this historic run for the Nittany Lions. And on top of that, you keep your offensive coordinator, which I think is key, right? Kotelnicki stayed. So now you've got another year for Drew Aller with him. It looks like you're bringing in hopefully the right wide receivers to kind of supplement what you have, right? We've done this before. You don't know. And you bring in the best defensive coordinator in college football right now. I don't have a problem saying that. I really think he is. You tie all that together, right? You have some stability in all the other position groups from a coaching perspective. And the expectations are going to be maybe higher than they were last year going into the season, and rightfully so.
And so given everything that you just said, don't you feel like not only Penn State's decision to go pursue Jim Knowles, because I'll be honest, like I kind of scoffed when I saw his name come up the minute the job came open, because I thought, look, number one, why is this guy going to leave Ohio State? And I get, look, sometimes guys, just not Tom Allen.
Right.
Not necessarily unhappy, but good opportunity comes up and you just decide this is not exactly a hand and glove fit for me. I'm going to move along. The other thing, some coaches just psychologically, they need another challenge.
Oh, yeah.
He wins a ring in Ohio State. Maybe this is the analogy I'd use. Maybe he wants to be like Theo Epstein. You're a great GM if you can get the Red Sox to win a World Series.
Yeah.
But if you can then turn around and do it with the Cubs, then you're the greatest of all time. So if you can help Ryan Day and James Franklin get over the championship, like who's going to question you at that point? So you go out and you make this hire and you spend a lot of money to do it, which I wasn't sure. I kind of felt like maybe at this point the administration was ready to do it, but I wasn't sure they would be. For a very long time. After the Paterno era ended, you had an administration at Penn State whose fans, and again, importantly, boosters and donors, had champagne tastes. And the president and the AD thought we could get there on a beer budget because we did it under Joe. And I think finally, James likes to talk about alignment. Everybody in the building has figured out, oh yeah, we're not special. We got to spend like everybody else spends. doesn't this, we have upped the ante big time, right? Like all the chips are to the middle of the table on 2025 at this point.
And I think that when you look at kind of the way that things have fallen in place over the last couple of years, I think that, Pat Kraft is probably the piece that came in and got that done, right? Like when he got hired, like I remember going in and I knew him from when we were at Temple. And I remember when he got hired, I pinged him, see if he still had the same cell phone. He said, yeah, come see me, man. And I sat down in his office for about 15, 20 minutes. He literally was in town like the first 2 or 3 days he'd been there, right? He had like a little window. He said, come see me. We sat down and talked, and like his energy and his enthusiasm and his passion to bring Penn State, especially, I mean, not just Penn State football, but Penn State athletics back to kind of the peak. And a lot of that centers around football because it is the centerpiece of almost every kind of college athletic program. I mean, it just is.
Yeah, no doubt.
You have food programs that are basketball, right? And we obviously have a ridiculous wrestling program at Penn State, but like his thought of like, I'm going to bring this thing back to where it used to be. And you see him making those moves, and he has over the last couple of years, right? And I think that, when you get to know the guy and you're around him and you feel the energy, I mean, you watch him on the sideline. I think I saw him like in a gym with James recruiting a guy, watching a high school basketball game the other day, on some recruiting site, So, I mean, look, there's definitely an energy. There's definitely an excitement. There's definitely what you said, an alignment, or it feels like an alignment from top to bottom, which there definitely was not when James first got here. I mean, we had, pardon my French, but we had been through some shit at that point, right? You know what I mean? And so, like, it's understandable. But I feel like, we've been through it all, and now it's kind of everybody's pointing in the same direction, which also means there's a tremendous amount of pressure internally and externally to get it done. And those will be interesting things to watch over the course of the off season and next year.
No doubt. And whether you're James Franklin or Drew Aller or anybody in the orbit of this program, you just got a simple decision to make. Am I going to let this pressure crush me? Or, is that going to be the Cole Diamond thing where you view it as an opportunity and you take advantage of it? And beauty of it is, Noble, until we kick this thing off, the only version of this team that really exists is the perfect one in our minds. And this was a big moment for Penn State football because they found themselves, whether they intended to or not, in this make or break situation where they got into a high stakes bidding war and essentially had to win it, or a whole lot of the air was going to come out of the balloon, and they did it. And so for reasons both on and off the field, I think it's a reason to be excited. And I know that in the not too distant future, you and I will wrangle up Horne and Mailman and we'll do a full podcast about this, but I wanted to get a quick reaction on the books since it was just announced. So I appreciate your time, man.
Yeah, man. Look, it's exciting. It's an exciting time. Like this last season was amazing. I'm looking forward to following it and seeing what we get next fall.
And I am looking forward to covering it and bringing you all along for the ride. So until we talk to you next, take care of yourselves and each other. We are